So Friday night, I'm driving home and I get this text from you. You send me this text
Yes.
and you say like, your book changed my life. And I'm like, I'm trying to drive here. What the hell are you doing to me? Right. And it's like, and so well, I see that text come in and then anyway, so then when I get home, we just text back and forth and and you cracked open the book and tell me what happened for you.
Well, what happened to me is I turned to the first page, and it was what this book is not, and that I was just like, oh my God, this is all so true. So then I started reading the introduction, and the introduction I was just like, oh my God, like I didn't really, I knew what you were talking about, but until it's kind of like when your parents tell you something and you're like, yeah, whatever, mom, whatever, dad. But then somebody that you truly respect tells you the same thing. You're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But coming from a fashion background, I knew all of this. But removing myself from the industry and being in the technology industry for 15 plus years, that mentality started to just seep away. And so it was kind of like a revisit to what is true to me as a designer at heart, an artist at heart. And it rekindled that trueness. And after that, after the introduction, I didn't even get to the first page. I just had this glimpse of what my brand can truly be, because I was trying to combine both my training in technology and my coaching in technology. And I was like, how the hell am I going to combine this? And it just clicked. And I was like, oh my God. So I was whiteboarding for hours. And I was with my wife, and it was kind of like, we were back in the days when we used to design, and we used to have this big um, design board, ideas board, and that's what we were doing for a few hours, and it was fantastic.
So your wife joined you in this whiteboarding thing that you started
Yeah,
to do?
yeah,
Cool. Cool.
yeah, and
So 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 you
it was
so so you,
epic.
so you leapt in. So that just like, the clouds parted and just right.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
exactly what
so
happened.
and so and then from what I saw from a little bit of some back and forth text threads, so it sounds like you just once you got in, you didn't stop. You basically like jammed. You finished the book.
I did, and I'm starting my second passing of the book, because
Yeah.
there were some tidbits that I really liked, and I want to go back to, because I need to revisit it. I need to get into the heart of what is my business. How am I going to what's the word, disrupt the, not just the training business, but the coaching business in general. I mean, the coaching business has been the same for God knows how many years.
Yep.
Everyone's a coach.
Hmm.
And so what makes one coach different from the other?
Hmm.
And I mean, there's many different ways on saying it, but how can you clearly define that from your heart, from what it is that you truly want to portray or convey to your people that you're marketing to?
Cool.
And so that's my journey now for the next week or two, is to figure that out.
Fantastic. Now, so you finished it. So since your wife joined you on the whiteboarding, did you also say, honey, you have to, and did she also like read it as well? Did she also get do that? What happened?
No, she didn't read it. So what had happened was, because I had this floodgate, if you will, of creativity and inspiration, I just started whiteboarding all this stuff,
Mm.
and I turned to my wife. I'm like, does this make sense? If you were my client, how would you perceive this? And, you know, like any good wife, she told me the truth. And so, you know, we were back and forth on some stuff, but, you know, it was domain names, URLs, and different ways of saying things, and, you know, even taglines. And it just blossomed from there. And I think every day since, I've been reiterating on it. I mean, I went for a run this morning, and all I could think about was, how am I going to really, because right now I'm happy with my slogan, but it's missing something.
Mm.
It's missing this, you know, that key spice that really brings out your barbecue. That's what I'm missing.
Right.
And it needs it, and I need to find it.
It's obviously vitally important. The fact that you're aware of all of that is amazingly great. Um, just listening to how you're describing it, you are bringing a lot of awareness and a lot of judgment. You know, there's good judgment and there's bad judgment, like anything. And I mean, I say this all the time, but it's always just a truth that I always come back to. Any single thing, there's the pro survival, good, productive aspect of that, and then there's the crappy aspect of that. You know, it's kind of like, that's why, and it so comes back to the premise of the book, which is differentiation, right? The art of
Yes.
differentiation. So that if you use that, there's no limit to where that applies to. So if you're like, one could say, well, knowledge is good. Well, not all knowledge is the same, right?
It's
So
true.
there's knowledge
Yeah.
that actually expands one's scope and ideas of what's possible. And then there's knowledge that's very, very limiting. There are questions that open up possibilities, and then there are questions that shut things down. There are insights that lead to more insights, and then there are insights that just sort of go, this is everything. There's nothing further to look for, which is, to me, is the death of a person. That's a death of a career. That's a death of talent. That's a death of discovery. That's a death of innovation. You know, it's like it never ends. There's always more to the path. And so the fact that you're asking these questions are to me, they're the upper tier of the right kinds of questions, the right type of mentality. And even just saying, honey, does this make sense? I mean, because I do the same thing. I mean, sometimes I know that I'm in the zone, I'm in the bead, and I don't need a second pair of eyes. And it's just from experience that I know, because I've done enough wrong things and I've done enough right things to bring that judgment to it. But it's not always the case. So there will be times I say, honey, I'm on the fence on this one. And I'll share it, and she'll go, that's amazing. Or she'll go, no. And I love her for that candor, because, you know, she for me was the first, and will always be, she is the voice of truth and candor. And like anything, like I just said, there's good candor, and then there's the candor that crushes you, right? There's the
Yes.
candor that opens your eyes, and there's the candor that just shuts you down. But she just gave this rational, she always had this rational level thing. And so the questions you're asking are perfect. They're an incredible compliment to the book. So that's why I was so excited when I heard your feedback. I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting one to hear your story, because you're coming to the party already with a truckload of stuff, of good stuff,
Yeah.
right? And that's very, 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 very powerful. And I love language. I mean, you know, I love great words. I love great imagery, great design. I love taking the ordinary and elevating it to extraordinary. And when I heard you talking about slogans and stuff like that, I took a company in the change management space, right? They work with organizations to help them
Yes.
move through change, whether it's personnel oriented or process oriented or whatever angle they need to hit it at.
Hmm.
But what I came through, I mean, I listened to their language, listened to the language of their competitors, and just in terms of language, I just thought you'd appreciate this. The slogan that we came up with for them is "Never stop conquering," right? For a
That's
change
amazing.
management firm, right?
I know, which can be so dry.
It's incredibly dry. It's very
Yeah.
dry. Well, because the people that you're serving they're either hyper focused on process or they're hyper focused from an HR standpoint, like how do we get the best utilization of and it's all very it's dry, like you say. And so this was,
Yeah.
but they're not a dry organization, my client. And so it's always so super exciting to just capture the right words, and just use them to just, and that was the thing, that was one of the premises of the book, was to, I personally was sick of reading 250 to 300 page business books, marketing books that had 10 pages of the good stuff.
Yeah.
There was always,
No
there's always
flavor.
like, you get to a point and you go, there's the gold. And you know what?
Yeah.
If I signed up for a freaking treasure hunt, then that would have been fine. I didn't sign up for a treasure hunt. I signed up for something to get something to go in and out with the right stuff. Um, and then I had to rummage through 150 pages before I got to the gold. I didn't need that kind of ramp up. And then I didn't, the extrapolations on the other side of those 10 pages didn't add much. So just give me the 10 pages. So that became my personal standard. I wanted there to be no fluff. And like I told you, I think when we spoke after your text, I said, there's one chapter that has 2 sentences. And I said, those are the only 2 sentences that were necessary for that chapter. I didn't
Yeah.
want to flesh it out because look, I respect you as a reader. I respect me as a writer. So I'm just going to give you the goods. Bam, super highly concentrated. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing that I noticed, David, is that your book also follows your mentality on branding. Is that you didn't just settle for writing a book. You really took it to a different level. You really invested. What is it that my reader wants to read? How are they going to read it? How are they going to interpolate it? How are they going to really ingest the information that I want to give them? If I give them all good information, then this book will do exactly what it is that I want people to do, which is to not settle and to think about their brand and how important it is to, using your words, use that specific vocabulary to really portray what it is that you do, not just your role or your career or you're in the business for such and such, but what is it truly that you do? What
Mhm.
is the deep core of what you do?
Yeah.
And I find that the mentality that you took of writing that book really integrates with your your soul for really transcribing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, plus the other thing too is if there was a subtext, the subtext to the book would be, one, nothing else is responsible for your success. You are responsible for your success. You don't give away your power to this social channel or this thing or that thing. It's like, just don't make less of what you are bringing to the table. And that also that really there really is no finish line, that basically good. So once you get to the brand, and it's one of the things I tell clients when we start a project, I say, here's the deal. I just want to be really, really, really hyper clear about this.
Mhm.
When we're done creating your brand and handling the name and handling the naming and handling the language and the brand story and the design and all that kind of stuff, that's when you're given the license to actually start working. You don't get to kick your feet up and think that the job is done. And then it's like, now it's all going to rake in. No, that's when the work starts. And that is like the thing. And I do that because unfortunately, we're at a time, I think, in culture, I think worldwide, there's a little undercurrent of entitlement, of like, well,
Yes.
I put out a little bit of effort and I should get a lot of reward, or I'm unrecognized, and you kind of complain and bitch. And, so there's it's a little disease, a little thing that kind of erodes away at our strength as artists, entrepreneurs, creators, innovators, leaders. And I think that that's highly, highly destructive. And so I wanted to really also attack that, and so that's why I say, hey, look, when I'm done, you now get to work. That's when you start breaking into a sweat. That's when you start really putting the pedal to the metal.
It's the kickstart.
You got it. You got it. So it's the
Yeah.
launch pad, man. It's like, bam. So are you strapped in? That's good, because we're about to lift off, And so,
well, it's also you're looking at, okay, you've defined your branding identity.
yeah,
Now you got to prove it.
totally. Totally. You got to live it and breathe it every day. And
Exactly.
and the other thing is that it's not everyone looks to like, oh, good, we're done with that. We don't have to revisit that. I said, are you kidding me? I revisit it every freaking day. Is there a part that's weak? Is there a part that's
Yeah.
not that's just not adding to the overall I mean, I revisit my brand every freaking day. It doesn't take a long time, but it's just a constant awareness. And that's the difference. Just that constant alertness, constant awareness, that attention to detail. It's like, is that working? Is that connecting? Oh, good. Oh, that's not working. That's not connecting. That's going to eat away, and that's going to dilute and compromise what our brand is in the world. So, so it's just a constant alertness. It's kind of like, you don't have to overthink being nice and gracious to another person if your intent is to be nice and gracious to another person. You don't have to think about it. Am I being nice to and gracious to another person? No, no, no. It's like you and I are talking.
Yes.
I'm interested in what you're saying. I know that you bring value. I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to actually do this. And so, so the thing is, it's just an intent. And so if you have that intent, will ride through everything. If you lack that
Yes.
intent, it's going to eat away at everything. So if your intent is there, you don't have to think. Thinking is like the death of innovation. It's just like overthinking, overanalyzing, da 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 da, being paralyzed with, well, what if this and what if that, da 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 da. Hey, look, what's the big what if? You are the big what if. Because you haven't stepped up. And if you haven't stepped up, then there's the what if right there. If you have stepped up, that what if goes out the door. It says, oh, I wasn't invited here. Yes, you were not.
And mic drop.
So cool. So
Yeah.
is there anything that you want to say to wrap up this little conversation in a beautiful bow?
I think people need to stop settling with, just regular and ordinary. Um, when me and my wife did our fashion label, we ran our own label. It was all about reinventing ourselves. So whenever we were finished one collection, we'd look at it and we'd be like, you know what, this sucks. We can do better. And we never stopped for 10 years. It was just like, we can do better. We can do better. We can do better. And I think that with most companies and organizations out there, and a lot of people that I see, you hear them speak about what it is that they're doing, and then you look at their branding, and it's like, you can do better. So I think that what I really learned from this book is that always, like you said, always be aware and always come back to what it is that I'm doing can I do better? And you just need to ask yourself that question constantly. It's not a, set it and forget it. No. And even people that still have great branding, I mean, there's so many huge companies out there that they do a rebranding every decade. I'm estimating, but that's what I see every decade. People are reinventing what it is that they're doing. They reinvent their logo, they reinvent their slogan, they reinvent their company culture to um, align with what it is that they're trying to say. And I think that everyone should take that time to really do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you're going to die a slow and painful death with your brand.
Could not have said it better myself, man. Seriously. It's that, it's it's like I talked about, the good and the not so good, and it's what I call healthy restlessness.
Yes.
It's like, okay, can it be better? I mean, every great leader, every great athlete, every great artist, every great innovator, every great disruptor, every great humanitarian, every great philanthropist always has that singular trait of self-inspection and simply willing to look and go, is that good enough? Can it be better? I think just those two things, if literally someone wanted to just transform how they existed across the boards, is that good enough? Can it be better? Is that good enough? Can it be better? Just jockey those two things and you will improve, as long as you don't lie to yourself. Unless you're like a really good liar, in which case, is it good enough? It's like, well, no, of course, it's the best thing in the world. Get the hell over it. It ain't happening.
You're lying to yourself, and that's another thing.
Well, that's the thing.
You have to be candid with yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you're in for disappointment.
Complete. I mean, every that factor of self-inspection and honesty with oneself and willingness to look, you can't improve if you're always great, or if you're always right, or if you're always beyond, I mean, some people get like hyper dumb with, like, you say, by the way, what you did is not as good as you can do. Oh, well, that hurt my feelings. It's like, well, then right there. It's like, wait a second, dude. What? Grow some skin. Get tough. It's like life's gonna hit you, good, bad, and different. High, low, mid. Get over it. If you can't fight back, you're doomed. We're raising a bunch of little zombioids. They're like ready to just be like eaten alive. That's a separate issue. But no, this is great. Why I wanted to do this was couple of reasons. One, your enthusiasm radiated from freaking Canada to me. I mean, it was like a freaking beacon. I was like, holy shit. I mean, this is like, I really could feel it, which was beautiful. And then then just a couple of comments, I was like, I think this would be an interesting discussion that other people would benefit from. And I didn't know, I'd forgotten about your fashion background. I'd forgotten about that. And so knowing that you bring that sensibility from the schmata industry, and so it's just it's very, very, very cool because that industry, I've done stuff for Estee Lauder and Revlon, and and I know that space, and it can be the most superficial BS, empty, shallow space, or not. But again, it's like literally, it's like you can go fashion. Okay, so there's this part of fashion, and then there's this part of fashion. And so it's interesting to me. Well, why aren't there more? And how? And if I were in that space, how do I elevate it? But there are certain designers that really get into it and stand for more than just a superficial spin. And
Yes.
and I was thrilled to just see what were you going to bring to it. So
Yeah. I think it really hit me when my cousin designed for me for a little bit, when it came to graphic design and branding. And we were asking him the impossible. It's like, let's okay, we need a brand. Can you do it for next week? And he's like, listen, dude, there's no fucking create graphic button. Okay. And at first I just laughed, but when I really thought about it, I was like, he's right. there is none. Like it takes time,
right.
because you have to constantly question yourself. Is
Yeah.
this right? Does this align with my values of my brand?
Yeah, exactly.
I wasn't sugarcoating anything. Like, this is truly, truly how I feel. And I really just want to do better. I look at my space with regards to training, and when it comes to coaching, then it's like, okay, well, how are we differentiating ourselves than everyone else?
Exactly.
And the coaching space, as you know, is so flooded.
They're either a coach or some expert or social media, blah, blah, ninja, or, jujitsu, kung fu master, or whatever the hell they are, and what the hell? And so, yeah, no, it's crazy. Well, all I can say, dude, is this is pure gold, dude. Pure freaking gold.
I love it.